Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Welcome. Please notice that you are aware. You can simply ask yourself, am I aware? And you know right away you are. You are here. This presence knows that it is. Sri Ramana said, meditate on the self, only on this. This is the only goal. By noticing that you are here and that this awareness, which you are, is aware in this moment. You are meditating on the self. The reason he pointed us in this direction, made this recommendation, is in contrast to the traditional forms of meditation. It's interesting that he used the word meditation because people often would ask him, do I need to meditate? And he would say, you need to make some effort. But it's not the effort that's made in traditional forms of meditation in which there is a subject and an object. So there is a me who is meditating. I am the meditator. Whether I follow my breath, the sensations in the body, a mantra, contemplation of scriptures, whatever it is, whatever your practice is at that moment, there has to be an I present in order to engage in it. This I has the implication of a goal, someone who is seeking something or wishes to obtain something by engaging in this meditation practice, which is based in subject and object. This kind of meditation, while relaxing, calming, opening from time to time into wisdom, does not ultimately lead you to understand who am I. And of course, this was Sri Ramana's goal. This was his pointer. And this is because the I has to be present in order to undertake these more formal and more traditional forms of meditation. They are very helpful, can be very useful along the way. But all meditations on subject and object ultimately end with this question: who am I? Not I as a personality, but I as the subject. So what the question, who am I, or am I aware, leads us back to is this recognition: I am, I exist, I, so that we can ask the question, who is this I? What is being referred to here? This is meditation on the self rather than meditation on an object. And this is why I'm always encouraging you to stop following the objects which rise in awareness. the thoughts, the sensations in the body, the feelings, the goals, all of which are outside of this direct perception of the one true self, that which you are. Bhagavan asked us, please meditate only on the self. So, in your practice, even just sitting here now, right? You don't need to be in formal meditation. This can be helpful when the body settles and you lose attention in the objects, you lose attention in the phenomenon that are coming and going around, or in the body, in the mind. When all of this becomes unimportant or relatively unimportant, you begin to settle into this recognition of self-existence, this recognition, very subtle, doesn't need to be with the mind. I am, or I. You feel this pulsation of I. In this moment, there is sufficient present attention to ask the question, who is this I? What is this I? And Bhagavan used both these forms. It's often thought that his teaching came down to only this one question, who am I? But he often presented other ways in which this question of who am I referring to, what am I referring to? When I say I, when you ask yourself, am I aware? And you know immediately without thinking, yes, I am here. This is also a form of inquiry, isn't it? But of course, this is only the first step. This is coming into this presence, which you are, in order to observe, witness, become familiar in a certain way with the way in which this particular manifestation of body-mind consciousness moves out into the objects, takes the subjective position, and then becomes the I am the body idea. But by asking, to whom am I referring when I say I, the attention comes away from the objects, turns in a way, you can say, toward the source, toward the subjective, establishes itself in this understanding. I exist, I am, I. That which is aware is here now. Resting as this recognition, the heart begins to open. Settling more deeply, there is a recognition of the vast space of being. And silently, there is a deep understanding. I am that. This all happens quite naturally. Through this presence as awareness itself. This is the meaning of Sri Ramana saying, remain as the self, only as that. Meditate on the self, only as that. This alone is the goal. Because from this moment of self-recognition, awareness is here now. I exist, I am. From this moment of recognition, when there is resting, relaxing, opening into this presence which you are, the awareness itself does the work as long as it remains non-attached to what is coming and going in the phenomenal field. This is the secret, isn't it? As soon as there is thinking, attachment, and so on, to anything that arises in body, mind, or world, to past memory, future projection, or even preoccupation with what appears to be the present, then this recognition and realization of that which is aware is here now loses its potency. And thus, Bhagavan said, meditate only on the self. Know that I am. Remain as that. These are his instructions. I am that I am. Remain here, now. This is your only effort. And even this effort, in a very short while, gives way to the natural state of being, consciousness, and bliss, that which you are. The simplicity of the inquiry can sometimes be a little bit deceptive, can't it? I remember being younger, practicing for many hours in the traditional ways of meditation, and hearing this one instruction from someone who had been to Tiruvannamalai back in the days when it was really a challenge to get here. But he had come to the feet of Arunachala, to Sri Ramana. And he said something about this teaching, who am I? And about the directness of it and the simplicity of it. And I struggled mightily with the simplicity of it, having a very, very complicated mind. I think at that time I was about 30 years old, maybe. Still searching, still seeking, reading everything I could get my hands on. But the one thing I really couldn't get my hands on at that time was much of anything about what was the true import and the true meaning of this question, who am I? This was well before the age of computers and before the availability of all the beautiful translations of the teachings which are here in India, whether they are Vedanta teachings or Buddhist teachings or whatever. Today, this information is readily available. Some would say to the confusion of many people. In those days, you had to just take what came your way, and often that wasn't much. So there was this recognition of Sri Ramana's presence in the world. Of course, he wasn't here in the body, but his presence in the world was still here and spreading at that time. But much of what he spoke about had not been translated into English, or if it had, in the terms of the books that were available here, they weren't available in the West. So it was really a challenge to get any information, any guidance. It wasn't like now where you can walk into the ashram and you have this vast array of books translated into English and French and Hungarian and Russian and Japanese, and this is readily available information. In those days, it wasn't. So there was only this mind that could grapple with this intense, I would say, simplicity, and learning very early on that while it was easy in some way to hear this, for me it was easy to come into contact with this who am I question. To understand what it meant was a whole nother situation. And with a complicated mind, all I could think about for a while was, I don't get it. It's too simple. What is being pointed at here? I don't understand, right? Because this is the mind that wants to know, that wants to have everything understood before it really plunges into the question itself. It wants a guarantee that if I ask this question and I undermine this I, that it won't be destroyed. This is coming from mind, isn't it? Yes, but you may be familiar with this experience. I'm willing to take a small step as long as I am not obliterated by this step. If I am going to be completely destroyed, I'll go over here and look at this book. This was this mind. I would rather read this book than be destroyed. Gather some more information. Don't step off the cliff just yet. So while Bhagavan's teaching is very clear, meditate only on the self, only on this. This alone is the goal. The simplicity of that can be terrifying and frightening. In order that you can move directly into this perception, simply, however, come to the fact that you are aware here now and rest in this. Right now, you have this feeling, don't you? This simple recognition, I am aware. You know that. You know it isn't a problem. You don't need to push yourself further. Wait there. Wait as awareness itself. This is the meaning of his instruction. Remain only as the self. This alone is the goal. This is that moment when we can give up all of our effort to become something, to find someone, to find something, to find the right book, to find the right teacher. All of that will happen on its own if something is necessary. The right book will come into your hands. The right video will come to you. The right teacher or teaching will come to you. Your task, until something like that happens, is to give up the effort that it takes to seek and come here to this moment, to this awareness, in favor of being rather than doing, being rather than seeking. Come to know yourself as that which is here in this moment. Step into not knowing, but do it gently. Bring yourself into the open heart of your own compassion, your own presence, and then ask the question, who am I? The answer will surely come. All right. Please raise your hand if you'd like to have the microphone.
Hi.
Hello.
So it resonated a lot, your story of when you were 30 and your mind was not accepting this question and its simplicity. And in a sense, I have the same struggle, and sometimes it even bothers me because I'm like, simply it doesn't work. And I don't feel like forcing it because that feels stupid, let's say.
Yes.
However, would you say that, for example, a meditation in which, like you started at the beginning, it uses subject-object, like the breath, or let's say an energy, in which I start to feel energy moving,
Yes.
and that feels very nice, and it feels like connection and raising vibration. And when this feeling is deep enough, going to the question slash realization that this energy that is moving is still me. It's not subject object, but we are kind of the same. Will that be considered meditation on the self, or that's still kind of a, let's say, a game for the mind?
So you're saying you simply meditate on the current that's present.
Yes.
Yes.
At the beginning, as a subject object, like, okay, now I
Yes.
feel
Yes. There's
here,
me
but
looking at this current or looking at this energy as it moves through the body.
yes.
Yes.
But later on, when it starts to
Yes.
be, when the two things start to be almost one, right? And I
Yes.
could kind of identify with it.
Yes.
That becomes meditation on the self, because you kind of start to realize that you are not what is watching, but you're both. Or that's still like a mind game that doesn't lead you to this self?
No, this is not a mind game, because these energies, this current is present in the body, isn't it? We can say this is the life force itself. We can name it in some way like this.
Yes.
Bhagavan just called it the current.
Yes.
And he said this Swarupa, this current, is present always. Most of the time it's more subtle than we can notice. He said, if you notice this current, just witness that. Keep the attention there. You can leave it there. You don't need to keep it there. You don't need to make a big effort.
Yes.
This current just keeps you there, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So you just allow it to be there. You keep the attention is focused there. And this current is not different from this recognition of awareness itself, which dissolves all of that me story.
Yes.
So yes, just keep going.
They're still meditating.
Yes,
on the
absolutely.
self. Okay.
When there is no me that is grabbing onto any object, it doesn't mean there are not objects present, whether it's current, a light in the mind, some deeper understanding. It doesn't mean there are not objects present. It means that all of those extraneous energies, objects, and so on that pull us outside, they are in abeyance or they are suspended for that period of time. So just stay with that. Stay with that focus. Let it be there. But again, it's not me staying with it.
No.
Let it become the natural state of being at that moment.
Yes.
And just rest.
And in those moments, sometimes I felt like it can be easier because the mind is less into separation to ask this question, right? Who is the perceiver? What is this? So like you said at the beginning.
Yes, and does that come up naturally, or do you have to somehow, are you saying to yourself, well, this is very nice, I'm here in this current, this is all very Shanti, I'm really enjoying this, and now I have to inquire?
Well, let's say there is less resistance than when my mind is very active. So
No,
I
I'm
still
asking
know
you
that it's
though, in that moment, when you
Yes.
are there as this witnessing quality of this current, does it come to your mind, oh, now I have to inquire?
Well, maybe a bit, yes.
Yeah, let that go.
Okay.
Be in that moment of presence, which is there with that current or this life force or energy or whatever you want to call it. Just be there as that, witness of that, okay? Or as that itself. Don't re-engage the mind with
Into a
some
new
practice
way. Yeah.
around that current,
Okay.
okay?
So it's the
The
same
current
practice,
is the
it's just-
practice in that moment.
Good.
No need to engage the mind or some speculation about what you should be doing or not doing.
All right.
Okay,
Good.
very
Thank
good. Yeah.
Son?
Yes?
So you just said step into the heart of your own compassion and then ask the question. So I guess before you had said that, I had the question is, where is the heart in this? Where does the heart come in? I mean, I think I've read that Bhagavan said that the consciousness is in the heart.
Consciousness and the heart are synonymous.
Are synonymous.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm finding that if I'm not in the heart, I don't hold on to this sense of being aware very well. You know, it becomes somewhat a head exercise. So, and then earlier when you were talking about the process, you said, you know, as if, and then the heart opens at the end of the process. So
It's not that the heart opens at the end of the process, it's that the mind finally acknowledges that the heart is open.
okay. So, but I'm just curious about this step of engage at the heart of your own compassion and then ask the question.
The reason that I refer to that way is because if there is only this question, who am I, who am I, who am I, who am I, this is the most common difficulty I think that people speak about, is that when the question, who am I, is a purely intellectual kind of question, it's purely mental, I'm trying to use the mind in order to access the heart, there is this frustration or this experience where the whole path, you can say, the non-path of inquiry seems like an intellectual exercise. So this is the reason why I say, open your heart through the question, am I aware? Yes, I am aware. I am aware. Knowing I am aware, right? Or knowing that awareness is here is actually a better way of putting it. Knowing awareness is here. I begin to feel the ways in which this mental exercise becomes a recognition of the heart of being. So it moves from here to here. And this happens quite naturally in this presence of one's own awareness.
Yeah, I think that's what's not always happening with me.
So then I recommend to you that you take up this question that says, am I aware? And immediately, of course, the answer is yes, right? If I ask you, am I aware? You don't say, no, I'm not aware. You say, yes, I am aware. Now rest. In other words, that's sufficient effort to bring you here, both here, here, and here. It's sufficient to bring you into the experience of the heart of being as all of this, right? And just allow yourself to settle there. You see, when I ask you, are you aware? You say,
Yes.
do you notice that there's a gap, a small gap between when I say, are you aware?
Yes.
And the mind responds, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. The mind responds with the yes, right? That small gap is the heart of being. Pristine, unsullied by any thought. It's pure recognition, that gap. And then the yes comes.
Mm-hmm.
All of our activity beyond that is somehow happening in this body-mind world complex. But in that moment, there is just this pristine recognition of being. There is nothing else here. As soon as attention in some way turns toward the answering of that question, am I aware? Yes, this deep recognition, this is the one truth. The one thing you know for sure is that you are aware. Now look into that gap. Ask yourself that question. Am I aware? Look into that gap even before the yes comes. This is what I mean by fall into the heart of compassion for oneself. Rest.
Yeah, that's good, because the gap is the resting.
Yes.
Because
And that gap is, and that resting are happening here.
Yeah.
They are not happening here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it seems like the asking, the answering, the yes, has to keep happening. But the gap can be expansive.
Yeah, that's one way of it, that it can appear, is that the asking of the question and the yes and the gap has to keep happening. But understand that this is only because there is a momentum to the conditioning which came before that. Right? Most of what we think, experience in the world, perceive, is based on prior conditioning of the mind. It's not based on truth. It's based on conditioning, repeating of experience, repeating of beliefs, the repeating of feelings, the acceptance that this is who I am the body, I am the feelings, I am the thoughts. This is conditioning. This has a great deal of momentum to it, right? Either from just in this lifetime, from the thought patterns and the so on in this lifetime, or from, some would say, from previous lifetimes, that all of this conditioning is coming forward. So in the beginning, it can appear, yes, I have to ask this question, am I aware, or who am I, or what am I, over and over and over. Remember, Annamalai Swami decided to determine how many times a day he had to ask the inquiry. And so he did the inquiry with one particularly thorny difficulty he was having, and around lust or something. And Bhagavan said, he said, I did what you said. I did this inquiry. Every time I felt this I rise, every time this thought came, every time this experience of this tendency came up, I asked, and I had to do it 700 times yesterday. I counted, it was like I counted. And Bhagavan's reply was very simple. Yes, and where is all that now? And he said, well, it's finished now. I'm just kind of reporting it to you. Bhagavan said, very good, keep quiet. If it's gone, it's gone. Makes no difference. You did it one time, you said, who am I? One time, you said it 700 times. So what he's telling us there is that what these forms of inquiry do is they overcome that conditioning, the momentum of that conditioning. But it may take some time. Our task is not to lose patience with that. That's why the heart of compassion for oneself needs to be open and present, so that we don't lose patience with ourselves, like an irritated teacher or parent. We remain open, loving, and kind toward the one who is there, knowing that there is sufficient wisdom and sufficient presence here now to even undertake this inquiry. Hallelujah. This is, rejoice in this, Somehow, through all of your existence or existences, you have come to this moment where there is sufficient presence, sufficient wisdom to really be able to ask this question. So don't keep beating yourself up when you don't ask the question, just ask the question and fall into the gap. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. This practice of kindness is very, very potent. Because it begins with us, right? The practice of kindness, compassion begins with us. But it very quickly spreads to looking into the eyes of everyone who is here and seeing not only the self, but also seeing that the suffering or we'll just leave it at that, but also sees the difficulty that every single person is facing. And feels not only compassion for oneself, but compassion for the suffering of others. And this is very useful on this way. Yeah. The Dalai Lama was once asked if he could define his religion in a word, and he said, "My religion is kindness." And this comes from this deep understanding that the suffering which which I've endured over many years or many lifetimes is also temporary. It has gone now in this moment of recognition. I am the self. In this moment, there has this past, all these things I believed I was, I thought I was, all these misunderstandings, all this ignorance that I faced is all gone. It's not here anymore. It was an illusion. This doesn't just make us somehow a superior human being. This also makes us very compassionate. We come to understand directly that this suffering which I have endured for you as well. And I can see your suffering. And I know it's not a barrier to self-realization. So you can go on as long as you wish with your story, with your ignorance, with your misunderstanding, with your conditioning, and I will still only see the self. And one day, you will only see the self. Because this is the destiny of all beings. It's not the destiny of only a few to awaken. It's the destiny of everyone to come to understand that which you are is this presence of Sat, Chit, Ananda. There is nothing else here.
Thank you.
Behind you.
Thank you for your presence, Rishi. Thank you.
Thank you for your presence. Thank you. I have nothing to say if you're not here.
Two things. First, I feel somehow with the who am I, my experience of it is the answer is in the question.
Yes.
Meaning when I ask the question, I can see in myself the question being asked like a layer on what the answer is, which means the silence that follows the question is the answer.
Very good. Then what?
Then nothing.
Very good.
Second point.
Very good. So, yes.
Second point is what to do with addictions. In the sense that I see Nisargadatta Maharaj, that I love dearly. He's I mean, the mind, what he taught me, and he's a chain smoker.
Yeah.
He smokes biddies.
Yeah. Whose label is that's an addiction? Is that his?
No.
Ah. Many people here have grappled with this also because Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar was also a famous smoker. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar
Yeah.
was also another famous smoker.
Oh.
And many people here have talked about this and had to grapple with this in their mind. And it really is true that the decision or the perception, you can say, or whatever, that this is an addiction, belongs to the perceiver.
But for me, I still see I smoke. And I still feel it doesn't feel good to my body. And there's still a fight in me which would love to stop it. And yet, it's not happening.
So the object of the inquiry is not to force ourselves or suppress ourselves or to do something that we're not ready for, but what it is it's definitely about not identifying with this behavior. You have no idea. You say, I would love to stop it. I would like to, but this tendency, it may be a deep tendency in you. It may go on for a long time. I'm not encouraging you to keep with that tendency. I'm saying open the heart of compassion toward this one. You don't understand in many ways why you do what you do. Does anyone here really understand why you do what you do? You see, most of you, if not all of you, we are all here trying to understand why we do what we do. Right? What other question is there? Who am I? This is the foundation of this. Why do I do what I do? Yeah. So this is why along this way, this compassion is so important, to be compassionate towards yourself, towards your habits, to not be, you always have to restrain yourself from harming others. And if you feel you are harming your body, the question has to be not how do I stop this and go into a struggle around it, but rather, am I the body? Is the body ultimately saved or harmed? The question I want you to ask yourself is, do you feel it interferes with your sadhana? This habit.
No.
Does it stop you from inquiring?
No.
Does it stop you from meditating? No. So stop wrestling with it. Really, stop wrestling with it. It's always important that we have a body that is prepared to undertake the moments of sadhana when the sadhana gets, the tapas, for instance, gets grueling, because it does at times. The tapas get intense. The practice of one-pointedness, the practice of inquiry can become quite intense at times. Remember Bhagavan sitting underneath the temple downtown? Just sitting for weeks and weeks and months while the insects ate his skin and so on. For some, there are deep physical aspects to the sadhana. For others, the body doesn't necessarily undergo those deep kinds of physical challenges, but there can be very intense mental challenges. So whatever it is that you need is going to come as a consequence of your willingness to ask the question, who am I? This is going to bring up everything that you need to chop, everything that you need to disassociate from in some way in order to understand that you are that one self. If it's necessary for you to drop that habit, it will simply fall away. Stay engaged with this inquiry into the question, who is this one self? You know, who am I? Who am I? Right? Not so much with the behaviors. You know, those of you who have children know that often as a parent, I have a few, you say to yourself as these beings are growing, you say, oh, I love you so much. I love you so unconditionally. I love you, I love you, I love you. This behavior, not so much. So still with a great deal of kindness, you know, to know both for yourself how to work with your frustration, but also to be able to say to them, to guide them, you know, this is not so pleasant what you are doing. You know, this behavior is not really, so you can be this way with yourself too. You know, you can also say, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I love myself. I'm here unconditionally. The wisdom of being is bringing me here. I have come to this holy hill, Arunachala. I have come to this way of being in the world, the way of Jnana. I have come to the way of bhakti, and I am happy with that. And what I am unhappy with, I don't like so much, but okay. I would rather focus on the inquiry itself, on this meditation on the self, rather than on the habits of the body-mind. That will fall away when the time is ready. It will fall away. For many people, just as much of some kind of a mental impediment as what you are calling an addiction or smoking cigarettes or whatever. It's just as much an impediment, a manifestation of ignorance, to be so overly concerned with the body that you ignore your sadhana, chasing after the perfect diet, the perfect food, the perfect this, the perfect that, perfect stages of health, perfect. This can also become an enormous impediment, and does very often for people engaged in spiritual life. We're always looking to find balance. Whenever we feel we are out of balance, then correct that. Whether we're out of balance because of what we perceive or what others might perceive to be an addiction or an imbalance in that way, or whether we are out of balance in the field of austerities. You know? Austerities definitely have their purpose and their meaning, but they are not a goal in and of themselves. So always keep looking to bring yourself into balance, to walk this way between the dualities of being and not being. Come into this moment as being consciousness, regardless of the circumstances of the body at this moment. Whether the body is sick, the body is healthy, the body is is dealing with what's felt to be an addiction. Just keep coming back into the heart of being. Every kind of form of imbalance that you can think of in your mind is really just the activity of the mind. So whether you tend toward austerity or you tend toward indulgence, understand that the underlying cause of that is the same. And this is the identification with the I and the body idea. What are you trying to preserve? What are you trying to protect? In protecting the body, that which is yours as a consequence of the prarabdha karma of having this body, having taken this body, having agreed to come into this life, that prarabdha karma has to work itself out. And it will work itself out whether you have some idea, whether this body or this mind or these feelings or these emotions match some idea you have of perfection or not. Once awakening has happened and becomes manifest and solid, because you are always awake, but once that has become your foundation of being, then what happens is, who is there who experiences pain or addiction or or austerities, or this one is gone. This one is no longer here. This was all part of that journey of me-ness, from me-ness into the self, from separation into unity, into oneness. And it's very easily seen. It's like everything that came before, even sections, periods of time in this life. This was all a previous life. This one no longer exists. It was all a dream. It's like waking up from a dream in the morning. You wake up from the dream, instantly, oh, I was dreaming. And there might be some residual, oh, that was a good dream. More of that. Can I please go back to sleep? More of that. There can still be that. Or there can be, that dream was really unsettling. Please, I think I'll get up now and walk away from that dream. But in this moment of recognition of being, this is what happens. It's a very similar experience. One has woken up from the dream. So the body and the prarabdha karma associated with the body, that element of it may continue to go on, because the body has to eventually deteriorate, doesn't it? It eventually has to give up. It has to go. This body, the idea of awakening or of realizing oneself is not to live forever. The idea is to live free for as long as one has in the body, and then to remain in that freedom as the unborn eternity from then on. And then the body just has to live out whatever it has to live out. Sri Nisargadatta smoked his whole life, and in the end gave up the body from cancer, right? From lung cancer. So his whole life was preparation for death. So is yours. Don't be afraid. You will do what you have to do. And the end will come in the way it needs to come. Live. If you live afraid of dying, you are dead already. Live. Use your time well. If you are doing that, everything else is just what's coming and going. sometimes pleasant, sometimes unpleasant, sometimes boring, sometimes exciting. This is all happening in the world of duality, in the world of mind. You are that which is aware as being, consciousness and bliss.
Namaskar.
Yes,
So I've
namaskar.
been wondering always about why do we exist? I mean, this whole concept of karma, that we do born, do our karma, die, and then eventually in our life at some point of time we look forward for awakening and enlightenment, and maybe we do some effort and get liberated from this birth and rebirth cycle. But why this whole process exists at the first place? That we do born and we do our karma and then we get liberated. So what is the origin and why does this exist at the first place?
Do you know you exist?
Sorry?
Do you know you exist?
Yeah.
Do you exist as a body and a mind? Or do you exist as being consciousness?
I guess body and a mind in this birth and as a consciousness in this universe as a whole.
Yes. So this is a confused state of knowing I exist, is when I believe that this existence in the body and the mind is real, and I neglect to ask, what is real? Is this body-mind real? Is this existence that I live as a body-mind real? Or is there something else going on here? This is the foundation of the question, who or what am I? Is when one comes to question not only the body-mind, but the actual belief or idea that a separate self exists. So this is the beginning of inquiry. But in order to go forward now, you'll have to just put down this question of why and simply come to this direct perception that I exist. Accept existence as it is, rather than trying to figure out why it is. This is a gateway. This is a doorway from ignorance into truth. The question why is always based in mental concepts, and thus it's said is based in ignorance. The question who is based in truth. So part of what I'm saying is there's no way to satisfy the mind that asks the question why. So for the time being, be willing to put that down and ask the question who. This requires a certain amount of faith, doesn't it? Yes. Yes. So understand that this requires a certain amount of faith. But the fortunate thing is that we have thousands of years of history here in India of this question being asked.
Yeah.
So we can put some faith in all those who have come before us and in their recognition and their realization of the truth through this question. So we can have some faith.
Yeah.
Yes, Rishi.
Hello.
I was really interested a couple of days ago when you mentioned the importance of doing self-inquiry last thing during the day and first thing in morning upon awakening. And so I put some attention on it, and what I saw is I always do this in the evening before falling asleep. I wouldn't call it self-inquiry, but
Yes.
getting back into the heart of beingness. This I do always. I'm not and witness this dissolution. I love doing this. I'm not that good in the morning, though. There is this very often there is this slight taste of unpleasantness upon awakening in me. And then 2 days ago, you would mention that there is this little heart opening, this little gap in which the vasanas would come and really at the edge of awakening and would invade. I believe you said first the body and then the mind. And I really would love you to expand a bit on this, if you don't think it to be too theoretical, because I really feel I need to put some attention on that.
Well, then the simplest way to answer you is just to say, don't be too concerned about the particulars of it. Just bring the attention as immediately as possible in the morning to this area in the right side of the chest, as a way of ensuring, we can say, that one doesn't immediately go here upon waking up and go into the tasks for the day and all the things that need to be said or done or want to be done. If you come, the question then is, where does this I arise? Okay, I was giving you the Bhagavan's answer. Ramana said that there is this heart, but he ultimately said this is not important. But if you awaken in the morning and you bring the attention to the question, where does this I sense rise from, you will find it on the right side of the chest. So he didn't go into a great deal of detail. He didn't say this was significantly important. He only said, if you wake up and you have this kind of uncertainty, anxiety, as many people do when they first awaken in the morning, it's like a dread that gets to try to get out of bed and go into the day. That if you have this kind of occurrence typically in your experience each day, understand that that is the rising of the vasana after it's already defined itself. So you can come back and say, where is this rising from? And you will find it on the right side of the chest. And just let the attention rest there, rather than going off into the shopping list or the things you want to do that day or whatever. So
yeah, it's not so much. It's not felt so much like I am trapped in my mind immediately. It's rather a kind of, and it's not fear or it's not something strong. It's why I am interested in it. It's very subtle. It takes the body. It really infuses the body. Did you say it comes into the body first and then into the mind?
I don't remember, but I might have said that. But it's not that this happens, then this happens, and this happens. If you are here, if you come to this place of being, where rather than jumping up off the bed, you are just willing to be there for a few minutes with the attention directed toward the right side of the chest, over time you become aware of this area. You wake up with awareness of this area. So you're not directing the mind to it. So in the beginning, just direct the mind to it after waking consciousness has come. But what will ultimately happen is you will wake up, you will begin to have this perception of waking up in this space.
Nice.
And then you will see that there's this flooding of the body-mind with awareness itself in the waking state. I don't remember whether I said body first and mind later, because it's
Yes.
I am here, right? So, yeah. Sri Ramana did not, it's interesting, I was just reading something about this a few days ago. He did not go into great detail about what this, area was or what it, he simply said, this is where the vasanas come into the body, this is where the heart, the energy of this existence comes into comes into the body each morning upon waking. And he said, you can know this. So he didn't give a lot of detail about it. He just simply said, you can ask this, and you can ask this question in meditation as well. Where is this I coming from? And for some people, they will be directed right back into the heart center on the right side of the body.
Okay.
For others, it's more of just this recognition of being, which has, center nowhere, but being everywhere. So, and it seems to be focused in this heart center of the body, but it's not, as it's not something you cannot do an X-ray and find it.
Yeah, of course.
It simply isn't there. It's a sense perception.
Yeah, and it's I don't know if it's worth spending more time on it. I just remember Maharishi Mahesh Yogi telling us when upon awakening, just get up immediately. As soon as you are awakened, get up, because in this, it's just like there is a slit, there is a little gap in the morning between two different states of consciousness,
Yes.
and we are easily taken by all these, lower
Yes.
energies.
Yes.
Either vasanas, either the one we carry inside, or the bad energy in different levels of existence
Yes.
or consciousness.
Yes. Yes. So, I don't really see this as different from that. There's just this moment where you can pause and you can see the way in which the energy of the waking state has flooded the body-mind. And then when you get up and move, you are moving from this presence. You're not moving out of some mental idea of what your day is about or what your list is or what, You're moving out of presence.
Yes.
So it's like allowing yourself to go into deep sleep at night. The last reflection before awareness winks out is being consciousness. And then also, in a way, you can say training yourself or conditioning yourself so that you are immediately in awareness of being consciousness upon returning to the body.
Yeah.
The traditional way of looking at it is that the vasanas are what cause this. They subside into this small space when you go to sleep, and then they come back in the morning. And what we're doing here is we're both acknowledging that before they wink out, being consciousness is here. And when they rise again, being consciousness is here. So we're just taking that small moment to remain as that presence in that moment.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we just have a tendency to believe we are the body, we are the vasanas, we are the darkness of falling asleep. You see, we don't have a continuity between the recognition of being consciousness in the waking state at night when we fall asleep, and the recognition of being consciousness in the waking state when we awaken in the morning. So we're just making that, this becomes part of our sadhana, and like every other part of our sadhana, at the moment of recognition of oneself as the self alone.
Okay.
It all just goes away. It
Thanks.
just gets swept away.
Nice.
Okay. So please go in kindness, go in peace. Know you are walking with God at all times, in all situations. You are not separate from that supreme self. That which you are is the heart of Sat Chitananda, being, consciousness, and bliss. This is your nature, beyond mind, body, and world. Even this simple recollection, throughout all your moments of waking, can bring you to the realization of your ever-present liberation, waking, dreaming, and sleeping. Hari Om. Tat Sat.